if I could talk to me from 5 years ago and say, like, hey, I know all the things you're thinking not doing, and I have actually done them, and then potentially change the direction of their life, it's difficult for me to imagine a life where I didn't experience the van life. That was something I had to experience. Now, would it have been helpful if I could have had a better idea of what that experience was going to be? I think probably. And the biggest thing you might have heard me say is just the expectation that it was going to be a forever thing, that it needed to be forever, that I even would want it to be forever. Just that expectation would have definitely changed how I approached it. But sometimes going into something and not knowing how it's going to turn out, that makes the experience even better, right? So one of the coolest things about, like embarking on a van life journey is every time you go somewhere, like, you don't have to know where you're going next. Before you leave, you should know. But like when you go to that place, you could stay there forever. I remember that when I started traveling, and not just in the van, but after the van, spoiler, I started doing other travels post van life. And once you get a taste for traveling, maybe that's what you really wanted, was traveling. Maybe it wasn't just living out of a car, looking out of the woods. But I remember this feeling of just like, if I like it, I don't ever have to leave, right? Like if I find this really cool spot by the river and I'm fishing and I've got my food every day and I got my campfire, I got my place to sleep, I don't ever have to leave. That's cool. That's a cool way to experience it. And so that's something I would tell to myself 5 years ago I would encourage you that if you can, to use that as an opportunity to take on that mindset, because it's really the mindset, like this sense of going all in on something. That's the idea. Right. But the biggest thing I remember when I first started, the thing I was thinking for just weeks and weeks and weeks, I was just like, man, I should have done this sooner. Why didn't I do this sooner? And I had all these reasons, which were very legitimate reasons. I was in school, I had to physically be there. And then after that, I had real jobs. I really had to be there. I had to physically go into work for years, and I had bills I had to pay, right? So it was like, these were real reasons, but they were real reasons from the framework of the only possibilities were the ones that are continuing doing the same things I'm currently doing, like within the same mindset. Okay, so what do I mean? Like, there's always another way. Like, to be honest with you, right now, you could just go out into the woods and just start living. You could just chop down some trees, build a campfire, build yourself a little hut, and you go hunt, fish, and you could just start living. And you think it might, wait a minute, no, that's illegal. I can't do that. Okay, well, think about this. And you might have to go farther than you think. You can't just go next door. You might have to drive a few hours. But if you go far enough into the woods and you call the police and you say, hello, I'm lost. Please come rescue me. Well, first, they're going to be annoyed. And then they're going to say, well, why did you do that? Why did you go out into the woods alone? Where's the nearest landmark? Where do you know where you are? It's going to be this whole process. And then, best case scenario, it would take dozens of people, a lot of resources, hours, maybe days to come find you. And that's if you were trying to be found, right? And you asked for help. So, like, you really could just go get lost in the woods and no one would care. No one would even know. You could start living. That's actually a possibility. It doesn't feel like it is because we're thinking from the framework of, well, I have a credit score and I have bills and I have this and that. But trust me, out in the woods, there's animals, there's all these things living that you don't even know exist, and you could just be amongst them and you could live happily ever after tomorrow. Now, I'm not saying that that's the extreme you want to go to, and I would never want to do that. It's too far. But the point is, like, there does exist a possibility. There is a way, like this idea that, oh, I cannot do this yet. I have to wait until I have this, this, and this, and then I can go live out in the woods. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is there's always somewhere in between. Today, you could go out in the woods with a backpack and live for a long time. Yes, it would be nicer if you had this van that you're dreaming of and you built it out and all of this, but let's like somewhere in between. If you just took your car and went out with a tent and started doing it, to be honest, like living out of a van is really difficult and tough and challenging. And so it really doesn't matter what kind of vehicle you have. It's going to be a difficult, challenging lifestyle. So compared to what you're doing, which is like living in a house, right? So once you're already out there, just living out in the woods like that, the type of vehicle, it's such a small thing. That's what I would say compared to what you're doing now. But I guess the main thing I would try to sell to you, to me, who hasn't done this yet, it's thinking about it, from someone who has done it, is like, whatever you got to do to do it sooner. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, if you could do it a year sooner, but you're doing it out of an SUV instead of a Promaster, or whatever car you got, that's way better. And the difference once you're out there is going to be so much smaller than you think. Because I'm telling you, these things like the bathroom, the air conditioner, the storage, all these things you think are going to be the big problems. Pizza, nothing. The big problem is the fact that, dude, you don't have a house. You live out in the woods, right? And that's the biggest benefit, right? But all that other little stuff you're worrying about, after a few weeks, you don't even really notice it. That's not even the big deal. The big deal is, where do you go? All these other problems, which I talked about. And you can watch, but sooner rather than later. And it's not just about this lifestyle. It's about everything in life. We're always like building it up so that we have to have all these things aligned, and then we can start doing it. And then we can be happy, and then we can enjoy ourselves. But whatever it is that we're actually chasing, we can really have the core of that, almost all of that, so much sooner. You want to be free. You want to go live out in the woods, grab a backpack, go out with a machete, chop down some trees. You can do it tomorrow, today, So not just in all the van life, but everything, whatever it is you really want. You don't have to go to the extreme, but there's somewhere in between what you think you need in order so you can finally do it, and then one day live the life. There's somewhere in between that. The more you are today, we can actually do it much sooner, and that's gonna be much better, because it's not just about getting that. It's once you get that, you're gonna have clarity. You can become a different person, and then from there, the whole new world of possibilities is gonna open up. Ones that you can't even imagine. Sitting at home, researching about it, thinking about, well, do I get this composting toilet, or do I get this, or that? Doesn't have all of that stuff is nothing. It's just noise. This is not the problem. The problem is all of this planning is making your plan more difficult, because you're building something up. It's building it up in this planning phase. You're pushing it further away. And all of these details, once you get there, they're not going to matter as much as you think. And I know, all of this sounds good in theory, but the reality is, like, you do need to have some research, and you do need to, do some preparation to get started. So to you, to me, to 5 years ago, having done it, what I would say is just try to get in with as little as quickly as possible. I don't know. I hope that helps. I know I always wish I had been able to sit down with someone like in real life, and they really told me what it was like, not like some vlog nonsense. So like, I know it's the internet, and on the internet we think like, oh, I don't pay for stuff. But if someone sat down in real life and told you this information, and it was like really helpful to your life, and you're like, well, let me get that guy a sandwich, like, you can actually give me a sandwich, and I would really appreciate that. So if you want to do that, link down below, and I will really wake up and see that you gave me a sandwich, and I will really go get myself a nicer meal that day. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching, and watch again, maybe.